gonna buy a probably. Should probably book me for it already. Wait, hold on, you know where I'm at? Yeah. Oh, what is that for? Oh, yeah. Should have, I think, because we get the hard eggs one, or we can put it in the cap.
I'll just bring it. She doesn't want us to get.
Oh, digo, ayun. Oh, good. Yeah, she did. Yeah, she wants it. Yeah. Verify that. One cup. Okay. Ande, take pictures of that. Yeah, pictures. Right, yeah. Oh, you're great on a TV crowd. Do you have any? Oh, whatever. She said whatever.
Yeah.
Cool. There you go.
No, I don't think so. Yeah.
Hello everyone, we're gonna get started here pretty soon. If you guys in a couple of minutes, if you guys can sign in, grab some food, plenty of food out there, some water, and then we're gonna get started in a few. So thank you guys for coming. Real quick, restrooms, women on this side, men on this side. So yeah, we're gonna get started real soon. Thanks.
trees.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and get started. Are you guys hearing me okay? Or is it like really muffled or a little muffled? Oh, sorry. Okay, is this better? Okay, sorry about that. Sorry, I have a loud booming voice, so I gotta put it up. Okay, thank you folks for coming today for our Waimea 400 affordable housing project meeting number 2, community meeting number 2. So my name is Steve Franco. I'm with the Kauai County Housing Agency, and thank you guys for all coming out tonight. And before we get started and get into the meat of things, I just wanted to just say a short prayer before we get started. So if everyone could go ahead and bow their heads. Heavenly Father, we are gathered here today to give thanks to you for bringing us together as a community. Please give us the strength and wisdom to work together as a community so that we make the best decisions that may benefit all of Kauai. May the food that has been prepared be blessed and nurtured us, and may you guide us safely home on our journeys on our way home. We say these things in Jesus' name. Amen. So we're going to go ahead and get started with the presentation portion of today's meeting, and we're going to have to turn off the lights so you guys can see the PowerPoint presentation much better. So sorry if you folks for the lights being off, but I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to our housing director, Adam Reversi.
If I just talk really loud, can you guys hear me without the microphone? Okay. Yep. So thank you for coming. My name is Adam. I'm the housing director for the county. I'm from Kilauea, so I'm a long way from my side of the island. I want to say just briefly about the structure of how tonight's going to flow so everybody knows what to expect. So our consultants from PBR Hawaii are going to start out with a presentation for you guys. It's going to cover some background information about the whole 400-acre master plan that the planning department did a couple of years ago, just to get us started and situated. We're going to talk about some of the comments and results from our first community meeting, which was many months ago. Then discuss sort of what's happening in the background, some of the basic studies that are being conducted as we speak that are irrespective of what's going to happen on the property. All these studies need to be done. We're going to talk a little bit about a parallel project that the Department of Public Works is doing. So the housing agency and tonight is really about just the portion of the property that was designated in the community master planning process for housing. But while we're working on that, which is going to take many years, the Department of Public Works is doing a series of studies about the entire property, studying the wetland areas, their future agricultural uses. So they're doing an array of studies separate and apart from what we're doing. And a little bit down the road, kind of after the housing area has its plans solidified, the Department of Public Works is also going to be having a series of public meetings about the uses on the entire property. We're really focused just on the housing project tonight. The purpose of this, really, after showing you this, is going to be to get your feedback. So we're going to be showing you some draft concept plans about what the housing area could look like. I can't stress enough that the concepts that we're going to share with you have not been predetermined. It's not a matter of having to choose one of those. They're really just discussion ones to prompt your feedback and ideas from you. So they are on these easels over here. They're going to be up on the big screen. And then after the presentation is finished, we're going to distribute copies of all of these out amongst all of you, so you have them in front of you to solicit your comments. You'll have multiple ways of commenting. You can write it down on hard copy paper. You can email us. The best way and the most helpful for us, because it helps keep everything organized and collated, is to use the QR codes that were distributed up at the front table or on the maps themselves, because it helps organize all the comments we receive. It makes it easier for us to collate and review everything we've done. Also, once the presentation is finished and we distribute the information out to all the tables, all of the folks from PBR and all of the housing agency staff are available. We'll be milling around the room to answer any specific questions, hear your comments, talk story about anything you want to talk about that relates to this housing project. So the opportunity for that one-on-one discussion will be after the presentation is wrapped up. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our consultants from PBR Hawaii to walk us through the presentation. Thanks, everybody.
Can you hear me okay? Is it okay for you to mic, or should I be like Adam and yell? Mike? Okay. Okay. Yes, thank you all for being here today. My name is Kimmy Yuen, and I'll just have Matt. That was Adam. I'm Kimmy Yuen. With me is Matt Nakamoto and Kara Linden from my office at PBR Hawaii. As Adam said, we're the planning consultant for the housing agency. Next slide. And as Adam said, we'll give you a brief overview of the master plan that the planning department did a couple years ago. So you can go to the next slide, which is what you see here. It is the entire 417 acres that the county acquired from Kikia'ola land. So if any of you here participated in that a few years back, this was the master plan that we came out with. And as you can see in the peach upper right corner of the slide is the housing bubbles. It's about 60 acres, and that is what Adam mentioned will be our focus for most of tonight. But we know from our first meeting that we got a lot of questions about, like, oh, what's happening on the rest of the site? Is the stadium still going to be built? All these kind of questions. So we thought it would be good to go through this real quick, especially if you were not familiar with the master plan that came out. But the idea was that the upper Malka area is adjacent to the existing town, right, not far from here. That Waimea Sunset, just off to the right of the beach areas, Waimea County Middle School, which is where we are today. That area was designated on the county's long-range plans for West Hawaii for housing. And so that's this project that we're working with now with Adam. But there were other uses that came up from that initial master plan, and you'll see on the west side of the property, on the left side, it's just designated as zones because everybody knows that this area gets soggy. There's a lot of concern about flooding. Like if you put stuff there, what's going to happen if it gets washed out? So the idea of this plan was to have that western side be an adaptive master plan that would change as the land changes, right? We all know that this was fill land when the plantation guys were there. There was the amazing wetlands that connected Waimea to Manal, but the land got filled. And so the different zones are about how the land evolves. As you know, sea level rise is coming, you're having groundwater intrusion from up. It's very low already. So zone 1, that idea was to let that area flood. Zone 2, there are like technical soil maps that were done back in the 70s. That area was fill land, so the idea was to, take out that fill and restore wetlands, let it flood, work with zone 1 and 2 to become, right, for drainage for the area. Zone 3 2 could be possible future flooded lands. That is the area that's roughly designated as the sea level rise exposure area. Zone 4 are intermittently flooded areas based on federal special flood hazard maps. So that could have transition uses. During dry times, you could have recreation. You could have agriculture. Even in the Mackay areas that might flood, you might have aquaculture uses, right? So the idea is to let the land evolve as it's going to, in the future, given sea level rise and the heavier rain events. Let it hopefully come back, right, to wetland areas, aquaculture, palo. There was going to talk about like oyster and shrimp farms, so you could still have active agriculture even in the flooded areas. Maya or bananas do well in kind of soggy land, so you could have active agricultural uses. And similar to Kilauea, they have like incubator agriculture programs. So the idea is, since this is county land, work with their Office of Economic Development to train future farmers, partner with schools. So the idea was let the land evolve as it's going to evolve, adjust the uses on the land as that land evolves. And then in Zone 5, that was the area that was outside of any potential or projected flooding or kind of wetland areas. So that area would be, for other uses that would not be as impacted from water. But as Adam says, we're here to focus on the housing areas and the peak. The Mackay area, you can still see the football stadium and track, as well as community uses. There was a student design challenge when we did the original master plan, and a lot of the ideas down there came from a lot of the students. There was a desire for like an outdoor amphitheater, places where you could have farmers markets and community events, tie it into your Waimea town celebration, and have that stretch on the Mackay side really be activated for community uses. There were covered play courts, an indoor gym, dog park, skate park, even in the flooded areas like a BMX track. So very much the idea to layer in active uses as well as being mindful of what is happening to the land. So the next slide, when we had that kickoff survey for the overall master plan, we had over 700 responses. Some of you may have remember there was controversy because they thought they were going to do like this inland surf park, but that was not what was happening. So we had put a survey out asking, what do you guys want to see here? And the top 5 were housing, the sports complex, paths, community gardens, and then farming and agriculture. All of the other uses that you see, 6 through 13, we've tried to layer in as much as we can. The only one we're not sure, because you already have a pool nearby in Waimea, that one, it wouldn't necessarily be a formal, there might be ways to do like a sprinkler park that you see, like the little kids can run through. So other ways to, think about that in those more active areas down the line with the county. So they're all in the master plan sites. The next slide. And as Adam mentioned, once that master plan was done, right, the county set out to implement the concepts from the master plan. And so, like he said, there's 2 parallel things going on in terms of county agencies. You have the Public Works Department that has contracted with ours in Kubota to do overall site studies on the entire 417 acres. Folks are familiar with Michael Mole. He's also working on a shared use path between Kekaha and Waimea that is likely going to be within this county property of 417 acres along the highway, but set in so it is separated from the traffic, from the vehicle traffic on the highway. And then here we are today with the housing team to do an affordable housing master plan. So I'll kind of go very quickly over the contract so you understand there's a lot going on. Next slide. The bars and Kubota's scope of work included a whole bunch of technical studies just to study and better understand the site, right? So number 1 was the drainage study, right? Because as we talked about, we know that this land is going to evolve. So they're working on an overall drainage study to understand multiple coming into the site, coming from, these areas east, and then even Kekaha, we know there's flooding. Maybe there's a way to make this area, because it's going to be allowed to flood, be kind of a regional drainage solution. So they're working on that. They did an aerial topographic survey to measure the elevations on the land. They are doing an archaeological literature review and field inspection, cultural impact assessment. If some of you may have been reached out to already by Honua Consulting, they're starting to reach out, and I know if there's interest to share your input on that, we can also make note of that. So write it down on the papers that when we get to it. They did a hydrogeology study. They did a wetland survey on the western portion. I'll go over, we did our own on the housing area, and I'll tell you the findings for that because we actually already have a U.S. Army Corps of Engineer review of that wetland study. And the good news is that where the housing is not wetlands. And I'll go into that in a little bit more detail. They're also working on a water management plan and green infrastructure concept that will also evolve as we develop our master plan for the housing. Traffic studies. They already did the flora fauna existing survey. They have civil engineering, they'll do cost estimates and all of these things that come out. And eventually it'll all get wrapped into an environmental impact statement, which anytime you use public land or money, you have to do a state level Chapter 343 environmental review. So in this case, because the site is so large and so varied, likely an environmental impact statement for the overall site, including the housing, potentially based on timing, and then also a federal level environmental review, which is the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA, which you guys might have heard of. And that, similarly, if there's a federal trigger, such as federal funding, federal lands, federal permit approvals, you will need to do a NEPA review. So that is what is in the engineering scope of work with Public Works. And then next slide, I'll go over really what we're here today for, which is the 60 acres comprising the Waimea 400 housing project. So next slide. Our work includes master plan, which is what we would love to tonight, help us refine the concept, land use, how the housing is arranged, types of housing, density. We'll go over all of that tonight. From there will need to be the environmental review, probably both state and federal, and then land use entitlements, because right now the site is agriculture. The planning department, when they did their West Kauai community plan update, did designate a big portion of it as a future mixed-use community. So part of that is done, but we still need to go through, and I'll go through all the whole list of things we need to do. There will be land use entitlements that will need to get done. So even after that, you still will need to have design and construction funding allocated for the housing project. So there are still many steps, many more opportunities for community input and feedback. So we really are at the front end of getting the conceptual master plan done for the housing area. So next slide. And even in this effort, right, we have to do technical studies to make sure the site is good for housing, right? And so, like I mentioned, we did a wetland survey for our area. I'll show you the map of the area that the Army Corps approved and gave us what's called a jurisdictional determination, that it was not wetlands. We will not need a federal Army Corps permit. We have developed some architectural housing prototypes, which we'll share with you later tonight. And this is all based on the original kickoff survey we had for this housing project, as well as the feedback we got at the first workshop and the housing case studies we shared. There's a market study, some preliminary finds we'll share with you tonight, and then we'll also have to do civil, electrical, traffic studies, all based on the master plan that comes out of this community-based plan that we're developing with you guys. We'll do report of magnitude cost estimates so that housing can start planning, funding the design and construction of the housing. And then there's also going to be an overlay of a subdivision map, because the housing agency really does want to look at those housing types to help support ownership. Because that's a big part of the feedback we got from the community, that they just don't want low-income rental housing. They want opportunities for potential ownership. So in the back corner, there's also a station set up to go over housing programs and that sort of thing. So we have staff there that you can also after the presentation. So the housing agency has heard you. They want to try to put in the type of housing that makes sense for this community, and so that's why we are here today. So next slide. And then, like I mentioned, after all the concept plan gets done, we'll have to do environmental review. There's other technical studies. We'll have to look at water resource to make sure there's water to support the housing. We'll do noise study, air quality, greenhouse gas emissions, and a public econ fiscal impact, and that all goes into our environmental reviews. We may also have a NEPA EA for the housing area if there's a federal trigger, which there may be, especially if we get HUD funding to do some of the housing. We will have to do the state land use district boundary amendment with the state land use commission, and then go through what's called an HRS 201H application and council approval for the zoning, because we don't have zoning yet on this site. So next slide. So here's the slide. It's a little dark, but the area outlined in red is the area that was reviewed by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers for our wetland survey. And they came out with a determination that none of that area in the red outline, aside from the wastewater treatment plant that was not included in our wetland survey, is not what's considered waters of the U.S. or wetlands. So this area is actually dry land, which is fabulous, including the 2 historic ditches that are in yellow. That was, during the plantation days. They did not make a determination on the 2 blue ditches below Mackay of the wastewater treatment plant, so those still may be federal waters. But the good thing is our housing area is milk of that. So this determination is good for 5 years, which means, right, if we have a federal permit required, we would absolutely have to do a federal environmental review. We still might need it because if housing goes after the housing, federal funding from HUD, there's still a need for review. So all that's still to be determined, but the good news is we do not have wetlands in the 60 acres where the housing is going. So next slide. Some preliminary findings from the affordable housing market study that we have done. Absolutely strong market support, as all you may know, support for ownership versus rental options, especially if they are affordable. This project will address critical housing needs. Based on the study, the county requires 6,000 to 7,000 new housing units between 2025 and 2045. It's a great location. It's close to employers, schools, and existing housing. And it's supported by other market comparisons and historical absorption rates of similar affordable housing projects on Kauai. So very much in demand, as I'm sure all of you know. Next slide. So I wanted to go quickly through the kickoff survey we did for the housing project, just so you know who responded to it, as a lot of the concepts that we're showing tonight comes from what the community has said so far. So we had over 440 responses to our kickoff survey. It was also available at our first workshop that was here back in February. But 44% of the respondents are from Westside, Kekaha, Waimea. If you want to see the full survey results, it's on our project website, which is www.waimea400housing.com. So next slide. Age range of the respondents, pretty evenly distributed, adults 25 to 65 plus. Next slide. Would you consider moving from your current home to Waimea 400? Oh, resounding 70% said yes. Next slide. What would motivate you to move? Affordability, over 77% said that was their top priority. Others included to live independently, which is 50%, and down the line, including excited about the new community and master plan, want to live in Waimea, be closer to work, be closer to family, and closer to schools. Next slide. How many bedrooms? Of course, everybody wants a 3-bedroom lovely house. Next. If you lived at Waimea 400, would you be interested in having a community garden? 3/4 said yes. And the top 5 priorities when you choose a home is affordability. Almost 90%. So that was their top priority. Next would be the neighborhood and community that it's in, type of home, number of bedrooms, and then close to work, and down on the line. So the next slide, household income. A lot of working families, obviously, over a third, or nearly a third, 2 full-time incomes. Next was full-time income, so again, lots of working families. There's also quite a few, almost 20% fixed income or retired. Some have only one full-time worker and another part-time worker, and down the line. Next slide. And then some of the open comments that we received include consider Westside characteristics and the way to build community, concerns about traffic and what happens in a natural disaster. We'd love to see more first-time home buyers. Rent-to-own model would be great.
take into account multi-generational families, want to have a community center and gathering places. Homes should not be built to later sell to those who are not from here. Have too many affordable housing projects, not enough middle-class housing, and I think if any of you tuned into the council hearing too, that came up a lot. Gap housing, and even in the first workshop, we had a lot of folks that were looking for gap housing. They don't qualify for the affordables typically, so need something in between. Need single-family homes, no more apartment complexes. Working locals deserve to stay on Kauai. Include outdoor recreational opportunities, including multi-use paths, skate park, playground, which is a lot of the things that will still be in the master plan surrounding the housing site. And then please make this happen soon. So, next slide. Go over the housing workshop that we did in February. That was community workshop number 1. This is number 2 today. And that one we had a lot of case studies of different housing types from here on Hawaii, other places in Hawaii, and other places outside of Hawaii too. So we had about over 100 signed at the workshop, probably more were there. We had families just like you folks. I'm glad you guys brought kids. It's really about them too. We had it online from February to March. We had about 70 online responses. And for the housing case studies, because we had it open-ended, people could, vote for whatever ones they liked. A lot of them didn't even vote on some, and then some put all their dots on some. So that's why the response rates for each housing type range between 94 and 218. Again, these are also posted on our project website, Waimea400housing.com. Next slide. So I'm just going to go through the top ranked housing types. And so this is what helped drive the housing prototypes that we're sharing with you tonight, and I'll walk you through them too later on in this presentation. But single family plantation style with a nice lanai at the front, carports on the side, almost 100% said yes, this works for Waimea. Next slide. Single family cottages, you guys may recognize where these are from. They're kind of the old plantation camp style homes that have similarly front porch, smaller footprints. Still a lot of folks supported this, 92%. Next slide. Kamakani Village, if you guys are familiar with this plantation camp, even this got almost 80% support, even though they're very simple. Next slide. These are examples from Brea in California, but there are little cottages. This had a lot of appeal too. Three-quarters of the respondents like those. Next slide. And then we got into multifamily options. This one got over 50% support. And this is a senior project in Lihue called Kaniko'o 1. They're all one story, and they're kind of arranged around garden courts, but very small scale. This one got 56% support. Next one. Kealaula. This is the housing agency's supportive housing. These are duplexes. So again, kind of similar layout where it's all kind of grouped together. Small cottage style homes, but these are actually duplexes. Over 50% supported these. And then, so those are kind of the concepts. So we hear that that's really the kind of housing you guys wanted to see here in Waimea. And so we had our architects from Hierarchy come up with some housing prototypes. Now, these are just examples that we developed for this project, but it's not to say that other housing, floor plans and building types that housing agencies already building in other affordable housing projects like Limaola, which has some single family as well. Those could also be at Waimea, but we thought it'd be good to come up with a slightly different footprint, and it's smaller in square footage to help bring the price down, but still make it feel like a very nice single family home, right? So we're calling these a single family cottage. It's about 960 square feet, including the front lanai. This option is 2-bedroom with a carport, based on construction, current construction costs for the house, just the vertical construction. So that doesn't include any of the infrastructure. Something like this would cost about $236,000. So this is again the 1-story, 2-bedroom, single family cottage. We did have the architects design this so that you could possibly add another bedroom in the back. So depending on the lot size and the configuration, we wanted to give those who are trying to start out, right, start with the lower price point, but then we know families grow, right? And so the idea of multi-generational, maybe you need to have mom or dad live with you too. There might be the ability to expand this type of floor plate where you can add another bedroom in the back to the house. So next slide is a 3-bedroom, 1-story house. You know, pretty close in cost, but because it's a little bigger, it's $378,000 just for the vertical construction of the house itself in today's dollars. Again, similarly, there's the ability to add an extension in the back, another bedroom in the back, and could also be converted to a live-work floor plan. And that's a concept we wanted to ask what you guys think about that. Is that something you guys might be interested in? I think the planning department, housing agency really want people to be able to support themselves, and we know it's not always easy to go out and lease space, commercial space, right? If you can have your own home, have a room up front. So in this floor plan, the front bedroom, right? It's a 3-bedroom, but the front bedroom has a wall that opens up on the lanai. If there's a door punched through there, you could hang your shingle, hang your home business, and have that front bedroom act as your home office, and then have living space behind. So that was this idea. So we'd love to hear what you guys think about this. We're looking to try to, you know, have uses that make sense for you guys here in Waimea. We know traffic is awful, and if you guys have the ability to have, you know, local nearby businesses, and you guys can work in your own home, is this something you guys would be interested in? So let us know what you think about that. The next prototype that our architects came up with was a 2-story, 3-bedroom home. So this one is obviously bigger. It's at 1,580 square feet. Your construction cost using the today's dollars comes out to $553,000 just for the house itself. But the idea here is that you would have a 3-bedroom home, front lanai as well, carport on the side. I think there is actually a way to do this depending on the lot size to add in another bedroom too to make it a 4-bedroom on the other side of the stairs, if you can see where the stairs are, kind of on the back left part of the floor plans. So this is another potential housing type that you know, we'd like to see if this would be of interest to you. So next slide, multifamily. Those were potential ownership options. These now would be multifamily, which would be rental. And this is just based on existing rental projects that is here on Hawaii. So right just next door, the Waimea Hō'ike example, multifamily rental, 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms with costs per month in the $680 to $1,400 rental price per month, up to, you know, the 3 bedrooms, the $941 to almost $1,900, and that's all based on your income, right? So these, as you know, are just down the street. This would be an average medium income range of 30 to 60%. So next slide is just another example. This is that Kanikō example for the senior rentals. Very similar price points for the 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms, and AMI range 30 to 60%. So, you know, just examples to give you for in terms of the cost, the potential cost for something like this. So next slide, and this is where we start getting into live work too. So when we go into the breakout group and we walk through the plans, you'll see areas that are shaded in pink and that we're saying potentially live work could be here. So the one on the left is an example from the Hui. I'm sure you guys are kind of familiar with this. Is the kind of old style plantation buildings where they had the commercial use on the ground floor and living space upstairs. It's a 2-story building, sorry. And as a standalone would be a potential ownership option. And then in Hanapepe, if you guys are familiar along that main street, there's a row of commercial units with, I think there's 3 upstairs rental units. So we have this as another option for potential rentals. And this would again be a 2-story building. So next slide. We have no idea what the price point on that is yet. So we just wanted to see if that type of housing option would be of interest. So in addition to, right, the option to convert a front bedroom on the single family cottage and homes a little bit more standard of what you might have seen in a commercial location. So what we did to give you a sense of scale and density was to test how many of our single-family cottages we could fit in an acre. And this is just to help us, project how many units might be able to be built on the site, right, in the 60 acres. So we have options which are equivalent to what the county calls an R10, or 10 units per acre. So typically in county zoning, 10 units per acre is actually a multifamily, right? And you see that on the right side, which would be your rental, because it's all within a single structure and they're just units lined up, right? Like the Waimea Hō'ike one next door, that's an R20, so it's even more dense. But we thought, hey, let's try a different example, give people the feeling of a single family home, but it's at a higher density, so it's more affordable. So your lot obviously will be smaller, but you can still fit some of these cottages, the single family cottages that we shared with you, at that same kind of density, so 10 units per acre. So you still have your own lot with a single family detached house. And then the standard single family density was 6 units per acres, which is shown in the yellow box in the under ownership options. As a lower density, obviously will be a higher price point. Live work options, based on those examples that we showed from Hanapepe and Rikue, you could probably do 10 units per acre, kind of roughly on a block. So the parking would be interior to the block, and all the buildings right would face the street. And I don't know if the uncle from last time is here. We will make sure that there are doors to the parking from any of the multifamily units. It won't be like you have to walk around or people are going to park on the street. We want to make sure it makes sense and it's easy to live in. So even the multifamily options will make sure there's like a back door and a front door, one facing the parking and one facing the street. Right? So kind of quick density studies. Other multifamily examples, there has been support for senior housing, right? I saw a lot of the response, almost 20% were fixed incomes. There's also the need for transition or supportive housing, like Kealaula. So those trying to making the transition, right, from houselessness to having a home, to hopefully going up into homeownership as they get more on their feet, get their jobs, get their income, get their savings established. And then another concept which came out from the planning department, where you would have single-family cottages kind of arranged as a cottage court. So it's kind of like, if you remember back in the day, the old plantation style homes where you would have them kind of all facing like a central green, parking on the edges. But the idea is that, with some of our housing examples with the front lanai, if you have a single mom or single dad needs to keep an eye on the kids, but want to let them be able to run out in the space, like right in front, like right in view of the home. That's an opportunity to have that kind of space where you would have a green space, kind of shared, sheltered space within a cottage court. So the houses will go around it. So these are all just kind of ideas and concepts. We're open to hearing all your ideas, but we thought we'd like to share with you some kind of cost, estimates based on the types of housing we're thinking about for the site. The next slide. Start getting into the site plans. So this first map is existing site. We don't have a lot in it because, right, it was former plantation camp prior to the plantation lands. Prior to that, we know a lot of it. There's the history that's getting studied on it, so we're going to make sure all the due diligence on the site, like the archaeological, the cultural, will be done on the site. So for now, this is where we're at. We've just identified the ditches from the plantation days there, but we know, and if you guys know, if you see this plan and you know there's stuff someplace, somewhere, mark it on the plan. So this is also an opportunity for you to help inform us if there are things we need to look out for and avoid or be aware of. So on the opportunities and constraints maps that will be out at each of the tables, we're going to have 5 stations, so you guys can stay where you're at. We'll put each of these maps out on each of the tables you guys are at. Please, 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 we would love to hear from you if there are anything, things we're missing right now, and we can help direct our technical consultants to do more research on. So please mark this up. The area in red that's outlined, which is a little hard to see, but it's right Mauka or above the wastewater treatment plant, and then abuts Waimea County Middle School, and the Waimea Sunset Subdivision. That is the 60 acres that is a part of our master plan, right, for the affordable housing project. We did put in where the existing infrastructure is and where we would need to tie in. Of course, logically, most of it comes from the existing developments to the east. So we've put that on this map. We have the bus routes, but please feel free to mark up any and all of these plans with things and ideas you would love to see. Okay, so like Adam said, none of this is set in stone. This is just for us to understand and better understand the site so we can plan accordingly. So next slide. There are 3 concept plans we came up with, right? And again, all the bubbles were just put on here just as an initial gesture for you guys to respond to. You can love it, hate it, mark it up. Each plan also has a QR code. So if you don't want to mark up the plan, if you use your phone, go to the QR code, there's an online collector for you to be able to do it too. Because I know there's actually quite a few of you here today, maybe not all of you can get to all of the options. But when you go and open up that QR code, it'll take you to a link with all of the 3 concept plans. You can give your feedback on each one. There's also going to be a section after that that says, if you had to pick one, which one would you like? Why? If you would change anything in the one that you like, what would that be? And then at the end, there's going to be an opportunity for you to actually draw. Like if you don't like the way the bubbles are on any of the plans, draw in where would you like to see single family housing? Where would you like to see multifamily? Take off the live work, whatever it is. Go ahead and mark those up. It's a little tricky in that it's one map per housing type. So there's going to be one for single family, there's going to be one for multifamily, live work. And you can only draw one bubble. So, you know, be mindful of that when you draw it, and then make sure you hit submit in order for it to get recorded. The plan still shows, right, all of the active community uses on the Mackay side, outside of the housing area, the stadium, the community spaces. There's a 3-acre area around the wastewater treatment plant that you see in blue. That was just something the county wanted to set aside for future county uses, so to make sure it wrapped the existing wastewater treatment plant, and then around that is a buffer. We know in the first go round, people were like concerned about the smells and noises and all of that from the wastewater treatment plant, so the idea was to put a buffer around that. So that's what you'll see consistently in all of the plans. Some of the edges closer to the housing, potential community gardens, but community gardens can also be incorporated within the different housing bubbles, right? So of course in multifamily, a lot of times that's a great thing because they don't have their own backyard. So we could absolutely include community gardens in all of the different housing areas as well. So when you look at these plans, the dark orange is the multifamily, you know, kind of projected to have 20 units per acre. So again, those would probably be like the multifamily buildings, like the Waimea Hō'ike 2-story max. We heard loud and clear, nobody wants 3 stories, so 2 stories max everywhere on the site. The single family cottages is that kind of in between, right? With the single family homes, detached homes, 10 to an acre. The lightest yellow is single family, so that's the R6. So that's probably going to be a lot of your gap housing, and I don't even know what the price point, guys, you can probably still work on that depending on the size of the house. But that too, right, like I was saying, there's other projects and other floor plans that housing has from other projects that they could also work into here. But if that's kind of the price points you guys think you might be at or you would want to see, please be sure to put that down, because a lot of this will feed into, you know, as housing moves forward with implementation, like how much, right, of each makes sense and will be able to be absorbed by you folks out there in the community. So this first one had bigger blocks of multifamily closer to the active uses in school, getting less dense to R6 as you go Mauka. The next concept plan starts to introduce the live work along the main internal spine of the community. So it's those 2 pink kind of stripes you see along that center road. I will say the existing roadways, and each of these are laid out the same, and the idea is to keep them very much the same as what you've got in the adjacent subdivision, right? So it's no sidewalks, right? It'd be like swales on each side of it, narrow roadway. If you want to see something different, make note of that as well. But that's the idea, that we would continue within the housing area, the same type of street types that you see in the existing subdivision, Waimea Sunset subdivision to the east. But in this one, yes, live, work along the main spine, multifamily, right on the other sides of it, close to the school. We're also showing conceptually, along the eastern edge, there's that blue line you'll see. We're not sure exactly how much drainage is going to be needed because we know there are malca flows that come into the site now, and even I think potentially some from the school and the housing. So we just wanted to make sure there's a good enough buffer to accommodate drainage. It may or may not be that big, but we would have the roads cross over to connect to those existing roads, and then look for potential to have a pedestrian path, right? So the kids can walk to school. So that's what you'll see just above the stadium, the football field and the track, right? So it'll connect all of the light, white, skinny, yellow lines are pedestrian paths. The roads are in gray, the blue are potential drainage, and we'll probably have to connect to some of the existing ditches to hopefully convey all of that water to the west, where we know it's going to get soggy, but that way we can keep the lands on this side dry for your housing and after leases. So this one, again, it gets less dense as you go malca, but all of them are actually coming out to about maybe 3 to 350 housing units based on the way it's drawn and the densities we're projecting. The single family cottages kind of carry up, malca to the spine. Oh, we do have equestrian trails, so that came out of the original master plan. We're keeping that running through too. So that's what's in that kind of green space at the very malca edge of each of the site plans. There's the brown dashed line you'll see on the plans. That's an equestrian trail that could also come down the center spine to the active community uses. So, hopefully we'll build that into the street sections. And then the last one is just a different, what's this kind of thing? I guess it just expands the areas of single family cottages. So, Matt, my eyes are totally horrible. What is the total? 321? Total units estimated on this. So this is all very rough, right? We'll actually have to do layouts and so forth. But just wanted to give you a sense of how many homes we could actually fit within those 60 acres given all of these constraints. You'll also see we're preserving one of the ditches cutting through. Like, even though the Army Corps said that's not a wetland or anything, some feedback we did from the first round with the community was that they love being able to see the wildlife that's there now. There's actually a lot of birds and animals that hang out at the existing ditches. So we will probably need to convey drainage. So the thought was, if there's a way to keep kind of those green belts between the housing areas, that might be a nice community feature. So you could have paths, wildlife, let the waters flow. If it gets too deep, we may have to cover it. But conceptually, the idea is to have the housing area kind of broken up with these little green spaces in between. So I think the last slide is just to let you know, like Adam said, we're going to have breakout sessions so you guys can each have a chance to put in your thoughts, mark up the plans, share things that we don't know about, that we need to not miss. You can use the QR code and do the online version of these things if you don't want to draw up the plans. This is going to stay up and be available to the end of the year. So even if you know anyone that wasn't able to make it tonight or tune in tonight, they can watch this recording. Hō'ike is going to record it and have it available on their YouTube channel. We'll put a link on our project website to it too. So there's no rush to try to finish everything tonight. If you got to get home, feel free. If you want to stay, we'll be here until 7:30. So yeah, take your time. Next slide is just to also let you know that we did also put a set of the plans, the QR code at Waimea Library. So if you know anybody that can make it tonight but wants to see it too on paper in person, it'll be up it's actually already up at the Waimea Library. We put it up on the little bulletin board in kind of the middle of the library. We have a comment box. If you know anybody that doesn't have access to computers or phones or technology, we do have a few hard copy versions of the survey you can take with you, and then if you take it home to them, they can drop it off in the box at the library. if you fill it out tonight, we'll take it from you tonight. But we're hoping, like Adam says, most of you can do it online, so it's easy for us to compile all the information. And like I said, we'll have it open till the end of the year. It's up on our website. You can look at all of the previous master plan document, community outreach from that effort 2+ years ago. It's all on our Waimea400housing.com website. Next slide is just next steps, right? So we'll compile all of that early next year, come up with a draft master plan, come back here, probably to the school or someplace in Waimea, to get your input on that draft plan based on all your input, and we're targeting early 2025 for that. And so with that, I think that's it. Mahalo. This is a QR code to the overall website. It's different from the one at each of the station. The ones at the station go directly to the survey collector, but this is going to just the regular website. We'll also have these slides up on the project website, so Waimea400housing.com. You can email us, like Adam says, Waimea400housing@gmail.com. And then I don't have anything else. Okay. Well, thank you all for being here. Holy cow. Hello. We'll roll out. You guys don't, aside from cleaning up plates and stuff, maybe getting more food. I can get plenty, so you get cookies. We're going to bring out the hard copy plans, one at each table. Mark them up. We got pens, QR code. It's on each sheet. If you don't want to look at it with everybody on your table, you've got them up on the side. Feel free to write any comments on the open sheet. So thank you, everyone. Thank you.